We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's February 7th here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Park Ki-hoon.
Thanks for having me.
And Kwon Ju-hyun.
Hello, hello.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. South Korea has decided to expand the enrollment quota for medical school for the first time in 19 years. Officials on Tuesday said they would increase the total number of students by 2,000 to tackle the country's long unresolved doctor shortage. The enrollment cap had been at 3,058 since 2006. For 5 years, it will be increased to 5,058. The Korea Medical Association has been against this measure and threatened to go on a general strike, but the government pointed to the dire healthcare needs of Korea's aging population and explained that the latest measure aims to ensure adequate medical staffing even in rural areas. Moving on, we're into the second month of 2024, and we've already seen a lot of South Koreans travel abroad. A local travel agency called Mode Tour found that the number of outbound travelers in January increased by 107% on year to more than 187,000. This was the highest figure since February 2020, which was just before COVID-19 really hit travel hard. The most popular destination was Southeast Asia and then Japan. Seoul's Unification Ministry released a 280-page report on North Korea's socio-economic situation on Tuesday. It is the first of its kind based on in-depth interviews with over 6,300 defectors between the years 2013 and 2022. One notable finding was 43.8% of defectors saying Kim Jong-un's power succession was inappropriate. The amount of people who thought his leadership was illegitimate increased to 56.3% the longer they had been in North Korea. The report analyzed that a growing negative public sentiment is forming towards the Baekdu bloodline-based leadership system. Now, the Baekdu bloodline has long been the standing roots of where Kim Jong-un and his predecessors, like his father Kim Jong-il and grandfather Kim Il-sung, gained power. It's propaganda idolizing the ruling family because they were supposedly born on Mount Baekdu, the highest peak on the Korean peninsula. Kim Jong-il, though, wasn't born here. He was actually born in the far eastern Russian city of Khabarovsk, and the report also shed light on the reality of North Korea at the moment. 9 out of 10 defectors said that North Korea's food rationing system had collapsed. Those who left the North after 2012 recalled 68% of their income coming from non-official income sources. And a growing number of people also said they had more access to outside information, with around 36% of defectors saying that they had phones. But they pointed to how internet access was close to impossible and how Kim Jong-un had been tightening his grip over North Koreans watching movies or dramas produced from other countries, namely South Korea. Now, here in the studio, it is the first time the Unification Ministry released a report of this kind. Of the many different findings there, which fact really fascinated you the most?
Well, the report wasn't that surprising to me because I do believe that many people already know that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's rise to key is inappropriate. More than 50% of defectors say that they have a negative view of him as a leader, and there is growing dissatisfaction with Baekdu 혈통 or Baekdu bloodline-based leadership. Yes, the survey is quite informative indeed, but there is only one person who should do this homework. He should read this article. Indeed, we do know that the North Korean leader has access to Korean internet, so why don't he take a look and be a brand new person in 2024?
Exactly. Instead of us doing the homework, I think Kim Jong-un should be reading the report to find out how the reality is in North Korea. What about you, Kyun? What did you think about this?
No, I do agree with you. And it doesn't seem like a big surprise at all, but at the same time, it's hard to imagine a country only like a couple of hundred kilometers away from Seoul. People are suffering from food shortages and not being paid for work and being exploited of basic human rights. The reality of North Korea is much harder than I imagined, and the reclusive regime is not as closed as before with open information around the world. And I think this is a good reality check for North Korea now that the international community is better aware of their socio-economic status, and I hope yeah, that person up north really does something about this.
Exactly. And not only them, I think it really garnered attention as to what we need to be doing for North Korea as well, because humanitarian aid is critical, but it's really hard given that they are a reclusive regime. And let's switch gears to our main discussion topic of the day. South Korea has been trying to reform its family-related laws to expand the concept of what makes up a family. 3 years ago, the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family laid out a basic framework to revise the current law that stipulates a family only involves direct relatives by blood, siblings, or a spouse. The ministry instead has been trying to recognize non-traditional types of families, including people who are unmarried, cohabiting couples, or even single-parent households, and ensure that they receive the same rights and protection as traditional families. And this has already been happening in France. My AI voice secretary will bring you the details.
Back in 1999, France adopted the Pacte civil de solidarité, a framework that legally recognizes two adults who wish to live together or formalize their relationship without getting married. Couples recognized under PACS are eligible for many benefits married couples have, including tax, healthcare, and even child support. Recently, the number of PACS couples reached an all-time high. A statistics compilation agency in France found that the number of couples who signed up in 2022 alone reached 209,827. Here in South Korea, young people are asking officials to implement a similar framework, specifically supporting and giving out subsidies to cohabiting couples just as the government would do to married couples.
France's low birth rate problem has also been solved through PACS. 60% of France's newborns were from PACS couples. And South Korea is experiencing an aging population and is home to the lowest birth rate in the world. And this is why young couples want officials here in the country to implement a similar system. So here in the studio, what do you guys think would be the pros and cons of us giving out tax or welfare benefits to cohabiting couples here in Korea?
I guess the biggest pro would be that it is a much simpler form of marriage in a nutshell. The process of cohabitation doesn't involve too many legal documents when signing up nor ending the contract. Hence, it gives you more freedom from sensitive issues like property division, child custody if you have any children, and you're left with no legal records when you do choose to separate. So I think this system does look attractive to many young couples thinking of marriage, as they can receive all the tax benefits and welfare benefits, just like that of a married couple. I think the general notion of marriage, especially here in Korea, has become a big burden to many youngsters. So this system, like the PACS, may alleviate that load marriage actually carries.
Right. I think you mentioned a really good point there. I think our generation has a tendency to wanting to enjoy the pros of a relationship, which is stability, and even, for instance, once we legalize it, financial benefits. But we're really afraid of commitment or the responsibilities that come forth with it. Would you like to elaborate on the pros and cons of us legalizing cohabitating couples?
Of course. Since Kyuni mentioned about the advantages of the system, let me talk about the disadvantages. Receiving benefits while having fewer responsibilities in the relationship can lead to various problems. For example, this system does not automatically grant parental rights and custody for the father. This means the system is not protecting mothers. It infringes the right of the mother, and eventually it threatens the rights of the child's well-being. I'm sure that you have heard about the 생활 동반자법, which is life companion law in English. Life companion law allows any gender, any people, regardless of their gender, they can form a family, they can become a family. Whereas this system is just limited to male and female couples. So many people ask and criticize, is this system mainly to increase birth rate?
Well, it is, because it seems like we are having a very big demographic crisis, and a survey recently showed around 6 out of 10 people here in Korea believe France's PACS system could help with our low birth rate. A big proportion of South Koreans for PACS were also in their 20s and 30s, so we're now going to delve into how our generation in particular views cohabiting compared to the older generation.
Right, the perception of cohabitation has become much more lenient and acceptable to the younger generation, including myself. And But I highly doubt the older generation in Korea even thought of this kind of concept of living together, because marriage was seen as something you had to do at a fairly young age and have at least 2 or more children, while getting a divorce was like kind of like the last resort, no matter what happened to you. But statistics show how open people are in their 20s and 30s when they think about marriage. So let's take a look at the screen to give you a better idea. According to a survey conducted by Statistics Korea last year, 81% of Korean MZers said they are for cohabitation without getting married. This is a 20% increase from 10 years ago. So we can clearly see the change in young people's perception towards cohabitation. I too think this will be a pretty good way to test the water out before diving right into marriage. But you know, there is nothing wrong with getting a divorce these days, but it comes with many disadvantages and of course a lot of emotional suffering that takes long time to actually overcome.
And overcome, heal from, which is completely understandable. And as you mentioned, it's not like our generation is thwarting or very against divorce. It's just the fact that we are more open to the concept of cohabiting. Now, Juyeon, would you like to add on to why there seems to be a generational gap, but our generation seems to be a little bit more open, right?
Indeed. But I can't say that the perception of cohabitation is entirely positive.
True.
Because of the Confucian values in Korean society, the country tends to be very conservative when it comes to gender issues. So let's suppose that this is Joseon dynasty, then it means that we can't sit next to Hyun.
Exactly.
Right. Well, I have a close friend.
You guys should be on the ground.
We should be on the ground because
Not in the same
How dare
room.
not in
you.
the same room.
Indeed.
In the same room.
For background knowledge, like in the Joseon dynasty, up to the age of 7, maybe you could be with another male or like a little young boy toddler, but then after 7, you had to be in separate rooms.
Right. I do agree with that. Well, I have a close friend. She's in her 20s, and she told me that she is living with her boyfriend. But she told me this story after we formed a very deep and close relationship. I know that she had told her story to a couple of friends, including me and her mother, but not to her father and her co-workers. She has no plans to share stories to her co-workers at all. I think it seems that she is concerned about the societal perception of cohabitation and the prejudice that she might face in the future.
Because there is that still remnant stigma towards the fact that a couple, especially if you're not married, are living together. Even though our generation is leading this type of trend, the generational gap seems to bring about a societal atmosphere where we're quite conservative. But we're now going to hear what a French Gen Z has to say on what South Korea views about cohabiting and her thoughts about the frameworks like PACS and whether it could be practical here in South Korea. Stay tuned for our live interview. We're now going to include a French Gen Z in our talks. It's Marie Clements Oricott. Welcome, Marie.
Hello.
All right, Marie, we're talking about cohabiting today, and France seems to be the epitome of it with the PACS framework. So have you ever heard about this, and what do you and your other friends think about this policy?
Yes, I did. In fact, it's really famous in France. So PACS is the acronym for Solidarity Civil Pact, and it's a contract between 2 adults of the same sex or different sex to organize their life together. It was created in 1999 and establishes rights and obligations in terms of material support for housing, assets, taxes, and social rights. Young people, including my friends and me, have a good opinion on PACS because it remains much less expensive than marriage, with quite the same similarities and requires less commitment in the long term. The contract is designed to be put in place quickly so couples can take benefits from the benefit from the advantages as soon as possible, and it includes several flexible choices. Lots of MZers consider PACS as a trial period to make sure they're making the good decision without losing money or time.
That sounds very interesting, Marie. How common is cohabiting and accepting such couples as a new form of family making in France?
It's highly common and it's getting even more common. The number of PACS continues to increase over time, and there were almost as many marriages as PACS in 2022, which represent more than 200,000 PACS this year. It shows the willingness of the French people to commit in a long-term relationship other than the traditional way of marriage. And it's mainly due to the similarities the PACS has to offer, but being more flexible and cheaper. And it's also the best option for young couples or even older couples in this economy.
Interesting, Maureen. So what do you think about Korea's perception of cohabitation? Though a growing number of young adults are becoming more open to this topic, we aren't as accepting of this new form of family structure compared to France. So what are your thoughts on this?
I do understand Korea's perception is not that much positive and open to the idea of PACS. I think it's mainly due because Korea and France have a different cultural and historical backgrounds, of course. But as an advocate of PACS, I hope that Korea sees the bright sides of the system and that it can help people save their time and money, as I said earlier. Also, it can be beneficial for emotional and mental health, as PACS can help find a partner with whom you truly want to have kids with.
And do you think it might boost our birth rates here? Because we are home to the lowest birth rates in the world. Would a PACS system allow us to boost this up?
I'm not really an expert in this field, so it's quite a difficult question. And unfortunately, I didn't find any studies online showing that the growing number of PACS impacted the birth rate in France. But getting PACS before getting married can ensure a better and a longer relationship that may increase the birth rates. And in this economy, I think that Korean people needs to be legally protected in another way than the marriage. That would be easier and less expensive for them, leading the Korean couples to a different way of life. That could help them feel better and wants to start a family.
Exactly. With globalization, I think now is the time for us to expand the definition of what we consider a traditional family. Thank you so much, Marie. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
All right. And we asked what other millennials and Gen Z around the world thought about cohabiting through our viewers. Here's what 3 of them had to share with us. Take a look at the screen to find out. Let's start with Benny. Benny said, I'm from the Philippines and I see those who are in cohabitation. They really want to stick together in the house or his or her partner since the cost of living is really high these days. Cesar said, I'm from Seattle, but the reality is that cohabitation increases the likelihood that the relationship will fail. If you want the romance to last forever, it's best not to cohabit and instead wait until marriage. Leon said living together allows couples to assess their compatibility before marriage. Sharing living expenses can also lead to financial savings for both partners. Furthermore, cohabiting partners can provide each other with emotional support on a daily basis and experience the day-to-day realities of life together. Now, before I end off our discussion, I would like to ask you the question I asked Marie. Do you think birth rates will go up if we legally recognize cohabiting couples as another form of family?
Yes, I think so. Just by looking at France, we can see the positive effects of cohabitation as it may eventually lead to an increase in birth rates, which is something South Korea is in most need of. I understand and feel that marriage comes with a lot of financial burden, but if you receive most of the benefits of a married couple, this will encourage more young couples to take this preliminary step and eventually tie the knot and, start a family.
It could be a good initial step.
Definitely.
For sure. What about you, Chion?
Well, I reckon this system will not increase the birth rate. Yes, it is good. By introducing the system, the government plans to reduce the burden of marriage and give more benefits to the couples so that it can lead to more childbirth. But if we don't get rid of the perception of cohabitation, if the perception of cohabitation doesn't change at all in this Korean society, it seems that couples who choose to, cohabit, there is a low possibility that they will have children in the future.
Because as you mentioned, even with the anecdote of your friend, that friend couldn't really tell her coworkers or even her father that she was cohabiting with her partner, but let alone if you have a child. Will you let people know that you had a child with someone that you're not married to? I think the societal atmosphere still needs a lot of work. And another good point that I would like to mention is there seems to be a generational gap when it comes to cohabitation and the way we view it. But nonetheless, as Kyun mentioned before in the stats, our generation seems to be much open to it. Then do you think we'll see more of it, starting with yourself here in Korea?
Yes, before I talk about myself, South Korea is in a dire situation right now when it comes to birth rates, and therefore I think they need to try out all sorts of different measures to bring the rate back up. If cohabitation can lead to more marriages, it will be a good start. However, there are many other factors that stop women from having children, which is another issue that needs to be tackled altogether. And cohabitation, I'm actually open to cohabitation. If that leads to, like I said, marriage, and obviously you need to get married to have kids. You don't really legally have to get married to have kids, but that's the norm right now. It's always been the norm. So I think if that helps me to tie the knot and settle down, both financially and living together, I think. Yeah, I might try it. I might try it out. Yeah, why not?
It'd be a good trial run with a lot of benefits you can reap in advance. Now, what about you, Jian? Where do you stand?
Well, yes, I agree with that. The trend of cohabiting couples is likely to increase in the future, leading to a more diverse range of family structures. So in order to face these dynamic family structures, the government should implement the right policy systems and rules for them, not just for them.
Exactly.
Yes, the couples would like to have a stable life. They would like to raise their child in a stable, supportive and inclusive society.
Exactly, and I think it all comes down to perspective and perception. And in order for us to do that, I think we need to also consider that traditional families, though we're expanding it to cohabiting, it should also be expanded to all types of couples out there, whether it be same-sex couples or single households. Hopefully we'll see more expansion there. Now, in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Park Gi-hoon.
It was a pleasure.
And Kwon Ji-hyun.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and thank you ever for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.